shall we make a start? I'm doing 2 cards today. I'm using the stencils, purely just stencils on one card and stencils and embossing folder on the other. Okay, so I'm not using the die at all because it doesn't require it on either of these cards. And then I'm using the word strips, so at the end, when I've done both cards, I'll just go through a couple of different ways of using the word strips. So if I quickly go through what I'm going to be using, so I'm using the tropical flowers, and as I said, I'm using the stencils just on one card, and I'm using the stencils and the embossing folder on the other card. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there just for my colours and put that to one side. I'm also using the word strips. I have to be honest, I don't use them very often. If I'm 100% honest, they intimidate me a little bit, but having used them on each card and done a couple of extra little things, I don't know why they've intimidated me for so long, because they're just beautiful. So I'm using those, and we'll go through those at the end. I'm also using the nested stitched bubble rectangles, purely and simply because I'm using bubble circles as well. So I'd sort of got a little bit of a bubble thing going, and I've also used the bubble embossing folder, so it all just fitted together, so I'm using those. I'm also using the bubble wrap embossing folder. I just love this. I think this is so clever. They actually look like bubble wrap. You actually look at a card and think, I want to put my finger in it and pop all those bubbles. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I'm using that. I'm also using the bubble circles, and then these two, although they're called delicate petals, I think they look quite tropical, so I think they fit really nicely with the tropical flowers, so I'm using those. And then I'm using the heart stencil out of the SLIMLINE Essentials set. There's 3 in this set. So on here, this is the card that I'm going to be making, but I'm not using blues, I'm using pinks today, because I didn't want to do the same colour. The card base is a 7x7 card. Okay, so this is the fabulous satin card, and this is the blue, because obviously everything else is blue. And then you can see I've used the word strips across the middle. Well, I know it covers some of the flowers, but I'm really not worried about that, because I just think the flowers are still there. People know they're there, and they know what they are because I can see them here. So I liked that. There is some stenciling in the background. I used the other 2 stencils on this one, so I used these 2, and it is very, very faint. I don't know if I lift it up whether you can see the stenciling in the background, just about, I think, but I didn't want it to be too obvious, so you know, I just wanted it to be really subtle. I didn't want the background to be totally white, so that's why I did the little bit of stenciling. Okay, so that's where we're headed. Now, because I'm doing stenciling on a circle, I'm not going to be able to use my peg system on my Ultimate 2. So, as luck would have it, because my mat arrived at the weekend, I'm going to use this today, and because it's magnetic, I can use my magnets to help me. Alright, so I've already cut my circle, and you can see I've drawn a circle on here, and the only reason I'm using the paper is to protect my mat, because I don't want to start and get ink on it straight away. I've drawn my markings on a piece of paper just to protect my mat, really. So if I put my circle where I've drawn around it, I know that I'm going to put this in the same place every time, okay, because I'm going to be turning this round. And then I'm going to start with my stencils. Now, I'm not going to use every single stencil, or I'm not going to use every part of every single stencil. I'm using quite a few because of which flowers I'm choosing, and you could do this with any of your floral stencils. It doesn't have to be this one, it was just I chose to use this set. But the principle, the idea, you can use anything really. I'm just using this one. So I've already marked out where I want my flowers to appear and my leaves, and I've made my marks on my paper so that I put my stencil in the same place every time, okay? Because obviously I can't use these because my circle's not going to be in the right place, okay? But this mat makes this part easy. First off, we're going to start with Margarita. I know that will surprise you because I don't use it that often, do I? So I'm coming in here with my Margarita, and I've already decided where I want to position this stencil, so that I've got a little bit of a gap in the middle here between this piece and this piece. I've got a strip across here, but then I've gone in and added this flower on the side so that it doesn't look too bare. If you didn't want to add those flowers, you don't have to. You could just make your word strip a little bit longer so that it went to the edge of your circle. Okay. So I've come in with my Margarita on here, and I'm not going to go too heavy because I don't want it to be particularly dark. I think, if I'm honest, I went a little bit heavy on here. I hadn't anticipated it being quite this dark, but I did use Deep Ocean on here as opposed to Surf's Up, because I think the Deep Ocean is a bluer blue, whereas the Surf's Up has got more of a sort of a turquoisey look to it. So I wanted blue as opposed to turquoise. That's why I went with Deep Ocean. So I've just gone lighter here, but it's exactly the same colour. So just something to bear in mind when you're adding your colours down, and deciding what colours you want to use, really. So again, I can line up my second stencil with my markings because I've already marked out where I want it to be. Now on here, I'm going with Dusky Pink. And again, I'm going to take a lot of the colour off because I want this to be obvious, but not sort of totally in your face to start with. I can always go in and add a little bit more colour afterwards, but I want to start off quite light. And this is why I've put the paper behind, because I'm coming off this circle and I didn't want to mess my mat up particularly. So going in there with that Dusky Rose. I'm going to leave the lids off, I think, for now. Just hope I don't put my brush in the wrong pad. It just saves me messing afterwards. Right, so that's my Dusky Rose. That's number 2. Then we can come in with move. You see, I moved that then, but I can put it back because I've got marks where it should be, and then I can add in my stencil on those markings on my paper. So come in here with this. I'm going to go on these 2 outer flowers. I'm going to go again with Dusky Rose, and then in the middle one I'm going to use Shocking Pink. So I can go a little bit darker now with that Dusky Rose, and then I can just go in and add each layer as I need to. I think this is a beautiful idea, just to use part of your stencil. You know, you don't have to use the whole lot. It's just, I just think they're beautiful stencils, to be honest. So I'm coming in here with my Shocking Pink, and I did need to start in the centre and work my way out, because I didn't want to fill the whole of the petal, particularly with that Shocking Pink. I wanted a little bit of softness around the edge. So I've started in the middle and I'm working my way out so that I don't fill the whole of the petal. Okay, and then I've got veins on the leaves here, and what I thought I would do is come in there with Loganberry, and again take off a lot of the ink so that you're working with a softer colour. So just fill those veins in on those leaves. Like so. And it's, although you're doing this stenciling more than once, it still does come together quite quickly. It really doesn't take a great deal of time. Once you've sort of got all your markings and you know where you're going, it's pretty quick. Now I've got choices here. I can either go with Loganberry on all three, or I can go with Shocking Pink on these two and Loganberry in the middle. So I think we'll do Loganberry in the middle because it's darker and it's going to show up on that Shocking Pink a little bit better. And then we can just decide whether we want to use the same colour on all of them or swap it up a little bit. We'll just have a quick look. Oh, quite like that. It's sort of got a bit of a silvery shimmer to it. I think I might stick with that on all of them, to be honest. So just line that up, make sure I've got it back in the right place. And I'm going to stick with that Loganberry on all of them. It's a really nice colour, this. It's not as dark as you think it's going to be. If you wanted something a little bit darker, I'd go for Rhubarb Jam. Okay. Yeah, like that. And then we're going to come in and add those stems, but obviously I'm only adding the one stem on here because these two flowers don't fit on the card. So I've only got, move my circle now. Let's put it back where it should be. Line it up. See, that's the added bonus of using a piece of paper, because you can line your circle up with the stenciling on the edge of your paper as well. So go back in here and line that up, and then we're going to come in with that woodland moss for that stem there, like so. And then we're just going to go in and add that little seed head. Now I'm going to use Margarita for that. See, I've moved my circle again. But you can always put it back in the right place. And with this one particularly, you can see where you need to be. So, you know, I'm not particularly worried about how much it moves because I can see where I'm going. And then finally I've just got that last little bit. Just put that back in that circle and line that up, and then I can go in with woodland moss again and just add those little seedy heads. See, I like that. And then what I'm going to do is flip it round, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the opposite side. Okay, so you want a sort of a mirror image. So I'm just going to make sure that it's more or less lined up top and bottom, and then go back and do the same stenciling again on the opposite side. And then when you come to do the last two little bits, you're only using one flower, and I will be using this one because there's more of the flower on show, so I'm going to use that one, but you'll see in a sec. So if we go back and re-stencil these again, same colours, so we're going Margarita on the leaves, come back in with number 2, line it up with my markings on my paper, and then go with that beautiful dusky rose. A little bit heavy there, but let's just use what's on the brush for now and see how we go. I might just add a little bit more, but not too much, just to darken that edge a little bit. Okay, so that's number 2. So now we're on number 3, so we're coming in with that dusky rose again, but we're going quite heavy this time. And then we're going in with Shocking Pink on the middle flower. Just readjust my circle, put it back where it was, And you can see that with having this piece of paper, it doesn't matter how many times my circle moves, because I can just go straight back in and line it all up again with the stenciling that I've already got on that paper. So it's a, you know, a little tip to help you with lining it up, and it works a dream. So I'm coming back in with that shocking pink. Come right to the edge at the bottom of the circle, but just leave a little bit on the edge of that flower. And then we're going to come back in here with these leaves, and we're going to go back with that beautiful loganberry in on those veins. And again, always circular motions, because if you go circular backwards and forwards, then you're not going to end up with a line of colour down one side and not the other. So it just keeps your colouring even. So it's quite quick. Okay, so that's that one. And then we're going to come in and put those veins on those flowers as well. And again, we're going to stick with that loganberry, because I really like the effect that it's given me. It's got that sort of a really silvery shimmer to it. Looks really fabulous. So I'm going to stick with that. But I am going to go quite heavy so that it stands out, especially on that shocking pink, because shocking pink is a really beautiful colour. So there's my loganberry. And come back in and just add that little stem with my woodland moss, like so, and then come in and fill in that little seed head. And then the next two bits are even quicker than this, because all I'm doing is just one flower. Okay, so that's that one, and then pop that one on there and just do those little seed heads. Like so. Okay, so that's my two halves. Now you can see if I put my sentiment across here, if I went all the way to the edge and made the sentiment longer, I wouldn't necessarily need two flowers. But I am going to add the other two flowers, because I do think it really makes a difference. I think it just finishes the card, if I'm honest. So I am going to add those other two in. Right, just put that down there. And then we're just going to use the flower. So we're going to use this one because there's more of the flower available to use. See, this one, because there's a petal in front of these two flowers, this one is cut away more. So this one gives you more of the flower, if you like. So let's just decide where we're going to put it and how much of it we're going to have in that little gap. See, there's not a lot, and I'm not using the base either, because it's a bit fiddly, and you don't want to come outside the lines. So if you used number 2, you'd have to try and guess where this line was. So I'm not going to use number 2 at all, and I really don't think it makes a great deal of difference. So I'm going to come in here with Dusky Rose, and we're all going to go reasonably heavy, because obviously I've only got one layer on the flower here, so we'll go in reasonably heavy, but I want it to be lighter than the others. Okay, so go in there. Now this is sort of more guesswork on this one. Don't need that, just need that. So before I take that off, I'm just gonna line it up and make sure I've got no white bits showing, and then I know I'm in more or less the right place. If we're going with that loganberry, excuse me, like so, and then I can line the other bits up because it's sort of quite easy to see where the other bits are. So if I come in with this one, I've got my little stem here, so let's line that up. No, wrong one, this one, silly Billy. Just pop that on there, put my woodland moss in, put my little bit of margarita in the centre. See, these bits are quite easy to line up because they're pretty obvious where you're missing bits, so it really isn't difficult. And then just line that one up there, and then just add that last little bit in there. So you see I've got a little bit of flower here. I'm going to turn it around, do exactly the same on the other side. So just pop my circle in there, and then go and do exactly the same again. So going in with this one, back in with that dusky rose. Alright. And I think, you know, you can see that you don't really need that base layer of colour because this flower looks quite different to all the others. So don't really think you need it. And the only time I would leave this in place is to just line up these veins on the flower. So more or less, you can sort of line it up yourself. Let's do it properly. Just put that back, like so. Put that over the top and whip that out. It's more or less right. About there. As long as you've got no white showing underneath, you're going to be pretty safe, assuming that you're in more or less the right place. So just pop in with that loganberry on those veins, and then my little stem, and again I can see where the stem is, so I'm not too worried about knowing it's in the right place. I can see it's in the right place. And the same with the other two bits, use the right one, and again back in with that margarita on there. And then finally that little seed head bit on there. Now your word strip might hide some of this, but I really don't think it makes that much difference. So let's just pop the lids on, because I've already done the stenciling for the other card, because obviously this has taken quite a while. So I didn't want to spend time doing stenciling for the second card, so all my bits are done for that. So there you go, there's your circle. Actually looks completely different to the blue one. I know it's going to, because it's pink and not blue, but you know what I mean. It just totally looks different, and I think it's great. I think it's a smashing idea. So thank you, Lorraine. So then we need to add this to our card, but before we put our things down, we're going to do that little bit of stenciling. So I've got my card blank, and I just want a little bit of stenciling in the background. Not a great deal, don't want it too heavy, just enough to sort of say, yeah, there's a bit of stenciling in the background. So I'm not re-inking the brush, okay? I'm literally just using the ink that's left on the brush. All right, you probably won't be able to see it. Actually, it's not too bad. And then I'm going to come opposite corner, and that's all I'm doing really, is just the 4 opposite corners. I'm not coming right to the middle, because I don't think it needs it, but it's just enough of a hint of interest in the background, rather than it being totally white, and sort of being a little bit stark, if you like. My iPad's failing to work. Don't know what's going on. And again, I am not going to re-ink this brush. Whatever ink I've got is whatever ink I'm using. I'm not going to add any more because I don't want, if I add more ink now, I'm going to get one lot of stencil in heavier than everything else, and I don't want that. So I just want the stenciling in the background, like so. Okay, and then we can come and add our circle to the background. Now see how that just lifts the card in the piece that you're putting in the middle. I think that stenciling just lifts it. So I'm just going to add this. I've added it flat because my circle with my sentiment, with my stenciling on, is going to be 3D'd, okay? Because I've got to put 3D somewhere, haven't I? Wouldn't be a card off me if I didn't, would it? So I'm going to put that as central as I can get it without measuring, because I never measure. And then we're going to put our pads on here so that we can add this down and give this a little bit of dimension. Okay, so I'm going to pop this down here like so. Try and get that as central as I can. Okay, and then I've just got my sentiment to put on. Now you can see here that I've used the thank you from the word strips, and I've also used the scalloped edge as well to cut this out, and I've backed it onto a sort of a cream card just so that it stands out in the middle of that. Now I think that one fits better than the one on the original card, but you know, that's just the way it goes sometimes, isn't it? You do something and you think, yeah, I'll do that again, and actually it looks twice as good the second time you do it than it did the first time. But so I'll just peel those off there, and then I can put my sentiment in the middle. And I honestly don't think this card needs anything else. That's straight. Is that straight? Yeah, I think that's straight. So there you go. One in blue, one in pink. And they look totally different. Exactly the same stencil set, but totally different. I love that idea. So the second one, I've used the bubble rectangles to cut out my base, and that's cut in the gold satin card, the new set. And then I've cut a piece of just sort of buff coloured card and run it through the embossing folder. And I want to sit here and pop all these little bubbles because they're great. I've also again used the scalloped edge on my sentiment. I've cut it in gold satin card, and then I've backed it onto the same colour card that I've used for the bubble wrap embossing folder piece. Okay, but I have just gone along the edge with I think it was milk chocolate roses, just to make that edge stand out a little bit, because obviously it's the same colour card as this, but I wanted it to stand out. Okay, and I'm going to put this down first because it's going to then let me decide how I place my flowers. Okay, so if I put this down first, I'm not going to put it right at the bottom, I'm going to put it slightly in so that you can still see that bubble wrap at the, not quite in the middle. You just want to get that in the middle of that panel, which I think that's about right. Okay, so that's my sentiment down, and then I've fussy cut my tropical flower, and the flower that I've used is this one. So it's the only full flower that you can cut out. Yes, you can cut the others if you want to put them underneath something else, but I'm only going to use this one because it's the biggest and it's the best. But once you've 3D'd it, once you've put it through the 3D embossing folder, it will give you the lines to be able to fussy cut it easily. The depth on the folders gives you a beautiful line to follow when you cut them out. So even if you don't like fussy cutting, I guarantee that this is going to be easier. Okay, so now my options are, and these are the delicate petals, and with the embossing folder you get the die. The die is in one piece, as you see here, but it cuts out 3 individual leaves, and that's these 3 that I've got the yellow line around them. And then I've embossed them, and then I've thought, okay, well, which leaf am I going to use? So initially I went with the narrow leaves, but I don't think they're quite big enough. So then it was a case of, do I use narrow? Do I use the leaves facing that way, or the leaves facing that way, or do I use some of each? If I place these, now I am going to add these down with 3D glue gel, to be fair, but if I place these, you will see what I mean when I say I think they're too small. So that one's going there, that one's going in the opposite direction, and that one's going there. Okay, now I think you can't see enough of the leaf for it to really give the impact that I wanted it to give. Okay, so if I take these off and use the bigger leaves and place those down, so if I go with one of those and 2 of the others, so I'll put that there and then put this one down here, I think you see more of the leaf, which gives you a better look to the card. So we're going to put these down with 3D glue gel to give them some depth. I have shaped them a little bit first. Obviously I've already embossed them, but I'm going to add them down with my 3D glue gel because I think it'll look better on the card. So let's put these down first. Just move those out of the way. So this one's going here, like so. This one's going up the top. Whoops, stuck to my finger. Bring that one down a little bit. But I just think these set the tropical flowers off really well. So that one's going up there. And again, I'm going to add this with 3D glue gel, because if I've 3D'd the leaves, then obviously I'm going to 3D the flowers as well. Okay, so just give that a little bit of shape, and then we can add our glue gel down. So that one's going up there, like so. And obviously all these are the same, so they're going to look fine together. That one there. And I'm not going to add anything else. I'm not going to put gems on or anything, because I don't think it needs it. Okay. And I think that looks cool. So let me just run through the word strips. Let me move this out of the way. So with your word strips, you've got sort of a few options. You can cut them. Say this is your card blank, your piece of card that you're going to put on your. You've got a card, and this is going to be your mat that's going to go on your base of your card. Okay, so you've got sort of 2 pieces of card like this. Okay, you can cut your, maybe use one that actually fits. You can cut that straight out of that card, okay, and then trim these 2 bits so that you've got more of a gap. So you could cut that out of your card so that you've got 2 pieces of card either side, so you've actually got a gap. And if you go into the group and look at Margaret James's card that she made, I think it says happy birthday on it. It was a last minute card that her husband asked her to make, I think, and Margaret's used it and actually cut into the card, so you've got 2 pieces of card either side of your sentiment. Do you know what I mean? So if I put that on there like so and just tape it down and run it through, You'll see what I mean, because it will cut your card in two. And leave your sentiment in the middle, like so. So you can just do that on your piece of card that's going onto your card. Do you know what I mean? So that's one way. Just cut it straight into your card. All right. If you want a more decorative piece like this, so I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut it on here actually. I'm going to cut this on here. I'm going to use the same one because it just fits on my piece of card. I'll just get rid of these bits off here because I don't want it to spoil me. So I'm going to put that down on my plate, run it through. Like so. And then you've got your sentiment cut into your card. Now I want to use this like I've used this one here, okay, but I don't want it to have just a plain edge. I want it to have a bit of a fancy edge. So you've got two extra dies in this set. One's got a stitched edge here and the other one's got a scalloped edge, and this, I love this scalloped edge. I think it's absolutely perfect. So all I'd say is when you put it down, remember how you want it to look, because if you put this upside down it's going to look not quite right. Okay, so the scallops need to be at the top when you're using it on the top of your piece of card. Okay, and I line it up with, if I do it this way, there's a line along here where your die is sort of sat on the card, and I line the edge of this up with that line. Okay, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of tape down so as it doesn't move, hopefully, and then I'm going to run it through to make sure my scallop's the right way up, because it'll look silly if it isn't. Now, just whiz that through. Okay, so it's cut my piece of card level and it's given me a beautiful scalloped edge along there. So I'm going to take it off here and I'm going to put it back on this one, making sure that my scallops are at the bottom away from this line. And I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to line it up with that line off the first die, tape it down. I would always tape it down, because if you don't and it moves, you're going to get what I got on here. This isn't quite level because I didn't tape it down, and it moved slightly on my die cutting machine, so the scallops are a bit deeper this end than they are this end. So again, just whiz that through. And again, your piece of card will fall away and you've got your sentiment with a beautiful scalloped edge. And then all I would do is however long you need it, just trim it down. And then you can either put it direct onto your card like that, or you can back it onto a different coloured card, which is what I did on here. Just touch my flowers. So like on the blue one, you see it better. I backed it onto black card just so that it gave it that bit of impact on that card. So this black here sort of mirrors the black around the circle, so it all ties in together. Okay, so you can either put it straight down onto your card like that, or cut yourself another piece of card and glue this down, and then add it to your card. So you can use it full length, you can trim it down, whatever you want to do. But they are a clever little set of sentiments. I might have to get the festive ones now I've used them a little bit more, because they are really, really effective. And I just think the different edges give it a totally different look. I think that matches the colours. I don't mean the satin card that I've used. I mean, the fact that it's got a scalloped edge matches the more delicate colours, and this is a little bit more masculine because it's just a stitched edge. Do you know what I mean? But either way, I think just have a play. Just decide what you want to do and just have a play. Because they're just that versatile. They're really, really clever. So there you go. 3 cards. Well, 2 that we've done today. Totally different. But both equally as beautiful, and just a couple of different ways to use that tropical flowers set. So have a fabulous week. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon.